Welcome to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission to help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEO, is your business growing? Where's your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome to this week's CEO Hour. My name is Dean Akers, and I'm your host each week, bringing you top CEOs or entrepreneurs in the Tampa Bay area as they share their journeys, both the good things that happen and the bad things that happen, and their tips to help you avoid some of them, and then some of their tips actually will help you grow your business. Today we have Terry Zelen. Terry is in the marketing world, the digital world. He'll tell us more about it, but welcome, Terry.
Thank you very much for having me.
And so, Terry, one of the things our listeners love is your journey. And your journey starts, I think it started back in 61.
That's correct.
And April, maybe?
Indeed.
So in April of 61, your journey starts. So where did you grow up?
Grew up in Waukegan, Illinois, which is about 40 minutes north of Chicago, up on the lake.
Wow. How long did you live up there?
I lived there until I was 15 years old, and then my father came home one day and said, "We're moving to Puerto Rico." And my mother looked at him and us and said, "We're what?" And he said, "Yeah, I got a job and we're going to go."
Wow. So you left the extreme coldest place on the planet and moved to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he picked us up and we moved down, and we lived in Ponce, which is on the south side of the island, and there was a very small English-speaking school that we attended. My brother and I, my sister was already in college, so my brother and I went down with my folks.
Did you get fluent in Spanish?
By the time I left, I was there about 3.5 full years. We got about 1 hour of English-speaking television a night, so it was sink or swim. You had to kind of learn that. My friends and I all got employed. We were actually employed at our father's plant. So they wouldn't speak English to us, so you were completely immersed over the summers when you worked.
Oh, what's crazy is, as you and I've talked, and you know, growing up in the 60s, and then in the 70s, and then to what you do today in the digital space, man, you've seen transitions like crazy, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, but I enjoy it and really have kind of grasped onto it and was one of the early adopters. When I first started working in agencies, I found that computers were going to be the wave of the future. I found that there were 3 agencies in Tampa at the time that had computers, and managed to get on board with one of those shops.
So you came back to Tampa. What brought you to Tampa?
In school in Puerto Rico, I fell in love with the water. Really wanted to go to school for marine biology, and looked across the country and found that University of Tampa actually had one of the top 10 programs in marine bio. So I got accepted and came up here, had a major in marine science, major in biology, minor in chemistry, and of course a minor in art.
Wow, and they still have a really top marine biology group.
Yeah, still excellent today.
Yeah, I'm involved with the business school there. I've been on their advisory board now for, seems like decades. Well, it has been decades.
Yeah.
But I got to tour their marine biology facility out on Rattlesnake Point.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you still stay in contact with them?
I was on the board of fellows for the past few years. In fact, I just came off of that board this spring.
Oh,
just
good.
had other
Yeah,
commitments.
that's a good organization.
That's very good.
It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
So you graduate from UT, and you got a degree in marine biology. Did you look in the mirror and say, "Is this really what I want?" How in the world do you go down the path you go down?
Yeah, I suppose like most people in life, you think that's what you want, and then when you get out, you realize it's probably not exactly what you had pictured. So Jacques' boat was full, so there was no room at the inn there, so I figured I had to go a different route. So I looked at it, and I was always drawn back to design. There's, in my family, my sister and my brother actually both went to ASU for advertising. I didn't go that route, and I'm the one that ended up in advertising, and neither one of them, per se, do advertising today.
Wow. So now you're a new graduate out of University of Tampa with a marine biology degree. Do you go on, well, back then they didn't have the job sites or anything because the internet wasn't even in existence.
Not at all.
So where did you start?
I had a portfolio because I had an art minor, so I took that around to a number of agencies in town. They didn't laugh. They were kind enough not to do that, but they also weren't going to hire me. So I went back. I had met a woman at Lazy Days RV when they were located on Florida Avenue.
Know it well.
Yeah, she was a really nice lady, and she was working in a trailer in the back of the dealership. And I went back to her and I said, look, I want to get into this business, and I'm willing to work for free. So she took me on. I worked there for a few months, and then there was a woman in town that helped freelancers find positions. That was a rarity back then, and she got me a job with a really small agency that was a designer who was with the Tribune, and I got on board with her and worked there for about a year, but realized I wasn't going to get to design anything. I was under the thumb of a senior designer, which was fine. It was a good experience, and then moved on.
So you got to meet HK. Mr. Wallace, Don's dad.
Oh yeah, way back in the day. Yep.
I mean, did you ever get to meet him?
Not directly. I worked with the woman in the trailer, and I got to learn how to do paste up for print ads and so forth with wax and boards and rulers and all of that. But there was no computer then. There was none of that. It was all you would send your type out. You'd get that back. You'd cut it out. You'd wax the backside. Roll it down on you had your board that you laid everything out on. And then it went off to be made into film and then off into plates and so forth. So it was a very laborious process with a lot of experts along the way.
Well, I got to meet H.K. Wallace years ago when I was on an entrepreneur thing when I had my tire company. I was a young guy that had a tire company, and he was on something with me, a board with me, and we got to know each other. Then subsequently, I got to know his son really well, Don.
Okay.
But wow, so now you go to work for a design agency. Then what happens?
Actually, I worked at Burns right out of school at night as a waiter, and then I worked in agencies of the day as I was going through the ranks. Byrne was great because he was an old ad guy. He was actually a copywriter, which most people don't know.
Really?
Yeah, he wrote, I think, for St. Pete Times or Tampa Trib for a while, and then Gert made more money selling burgers and beers, so he decided to join her. But after that, I did get into a smaller agency. I finally got into an agency here in town that was just three of us, really. It was a wife and husband and myself, and I got on the Mac computer then, and that was when everything was just really starting out on the digital front.
Yeah, to have worked in the Burns organization and to know him, to know Byrne himself back in the day. Yeah. See, we're dating ourselves a little bit now when we're talking about H.K. Wallace and Byrne Laxer.
Yeah.
So, do you know David?
Not well. I left just as David was coming back. David finished culinary school in New York, returned to Tampa, and had the benefit of kind of getting his feet under him before his father passed away.
That's a great organization, though.
Yeah, still is today, very much so.
They're iconic.
Yes, truly.
So now you're out doing. You're on your own with this small group. Tell me what happens.
I got into the firm. It was a small agency off of West Shore Boulevard. And then he decided that I was freelancing and that wasn't going to be acceptable. So I stepped out of the firm. And then a printer let me work out of the back of his shop if I would set print for him on Kennedy Boulevard in the back, and struggled with that for a while and freelanced for a few agencies, but I just didn't have the connections really to make it work. So I had the opportunity to freelance for a few larger firms, and then I got my foot in the door over at what used to be Paradigm Communications, second largest agency in town. They had a team of about 6 or 7 art directors, none of which knew how to use the computer. They had given them a week training in the entire suite of applications, which you can't learn anything whatsoever. So they brought me on because they were doing a brochure for Continental Airlines at the time, and no one knew how to set tabs inside of the software. So they asked me if I would show their team how to do it. So they brought me on board. I got to work on the Lightning, baseball. I got to work on all kinds of great accounts. It was a real eye-opener coming from a small shop, coming into a big agency. And it was a traditional agency in terms of the traffic and production and so forth, and art directors. But I had the opportunity to, I was a techie, kind of a geek as a designer, and we came across an account out in California called not going to remember the name of this company, but they made accelerator boards. They were add-on boards to the Macintosh system. Back then, they didn't have accelerator cards or anything built into the system. So the ownership didn't know how to even talk to the client, but they got an opportunity to meet with them. So I became not only the art director on it, but the account service, which was extremely rare back then. Used to only throw meat to the creative department. You really didn't want them come out and meet with your clients.
That had to be pretty interesting. When we go into segment 2, I want to learn. I gotta believe that I can imagine, because I was a computer geeky guy, even though I own my company. They rocked my world back in the day, and Mac was so ahead of its time. Well, it was, and PC was just coming out, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in segment 2. I do want to remind our listeners that we have the free CEO physical, and that's available to any of you. We've helped a number of people with that, and that's help@adjunctceo.com, help@adjunctceo.com, and it's absolutely free. We'll help you do overview of your company and find those blind spots. And so in the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit more to Terry about his journey and really learned how he's moved into the computer age back in the day, and how he helped the company grow in that way. So we'll see you back in segment 2.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers, will be right back. Connect at deanakers.com. So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Welcome back to the CEO Hour, helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 2 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs each week as they share their journey. This week we have Terry Zelen. Terry Zelen is a marketing guru in the Tampa Bay area, and is coming out of the first segment, you can see he was kind of an outlier in the day when people probably thought you were crazy even messing with a computer when you first started. Did they?
Yeah, I remember going to another agency when I was out freelancing, and I went into them and I showed them drawings that I had done with the computer, and they said, well, no, you just made copies of it. And I'm like, no, that's actually drawn in the computer. They couldn't believe it, and then they said, well, we can do this kind of thing on a drawing board. We really don't need the computer. And I said, Okay.
See you in 20 years.
See you in 5 years, or not.
Or not. Yeah. So now you're with Paradigm, so you're getting an experience of dealing in a big agency. Was that kind of a tough road or a good road? Or
I've always kind of felt I went to a small school when I was a kid, went to a small high school, went to a small college. When I got into the corporate environment, I found quickly that wasn't quite what I had thought it might be. So I stayed at Paradigm for roughly 3.5 years. I actually left there to go design and build furniture. So I quit the agency, did that, and I had 2 agencies that kept calling me and saying, if you come back, we'll give you all the design work you want. So I after about a year's time of sweating and building furniture, I decided it was more fun and lucrative to go back to design work.
So you were building furniture on your own and selling it? Was it
Yes.
kind of like outdoor furniture or something?
I did some office furniture, lamps, tables, chairs, just fun. I've always liked to work with my hands, so it's always in college I worked at a marina and built docks every summer, all summer long.
Wow. So you've had kind of you've got the creative side of your brain, and then also what would I call that side of the brain?
I don't know. My father could build just about anything, and he said his father was the same way, so I guess it's kind of inherent.
So now you're back into the computer world. You've gotten out of building furniture. The agencies that wanted you back, they wanted you for your computer skills?
Design and computer skills, yeah. I was very fast. Most of the people were not very quick back then. I mean, they were just trying to learn how to use the hardware and software, and I had really kind of gotten on board, really drilled down into it, and was very quick.
So the entrepreneurs out there and the folks that are listening, tell me or tell our listeners what design really means.
Well, design is in the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, I guess you would say, but design is really all-encompassing. I mean, it can be everything from creating a print ad to a billboard, but in today's environment, it's all about web design and creating interfaces and unique ways of presenting content online.
But where does functionality / design or art, what makes somebody that understands, or is it important for a designer to understand both?
Well, I'm in a unique position that I have to sell what we do. So I need to understand what the capabilities are from the standpoint of programming, so that if someone makes a request of us, can we do X, Y, or Z, I have at least a basic knowledge of what's possible. From the design standpoint, we have designers that work for us, and those people work directly with the programmer developers to create a vision for what they're looking for, and then the developers bring that to life through code.
Now, how involved is that?
Well, we're unique in I say the area more so than most agencies in that we are true developers. We don't take templates from WordPress. We only work in WordPress just because we believe it's the best CRM available for our clients. It's open source, and we prefer that so our clients can own it outright and manage their content. So WordPress allows you to pick up a template and put a bunch of plugins into it, and away you go. But there's inherent problems in doing that. By coding the site from scratch, and you are developing just the customization that your client needs, so less likely to break over time, and also it's faster, which is a requirement from Google from an SEO standpoint. Speed is inherently important because of mobile devices such as phones and tablets. So
now you've jumped way ahead, because so you're doing digital. When did you start your own agency? What precipitated that?
Really, I freelanced for just about every agency I could in town, and that went on for roughly 7 years. I worked out of my house, and it was going great, and then my wife kicked me out and said, you need to go get an office. So went and bought a building outside of Hyde Park with one of my college buddies, and we worked out of that for a number of years. But at that time, I was still freelancing pretty much. Excuse me. But slowly but surely, after being at Paradigm, I'd met a lot of people, worked on some bigger accounts, and then I was introduced to many other people and worked with agencies still on a frequent basis. And I really kind of went that route because I wanted to see how other agencies worked and what worked and what didn't work necessarily. And agencies each have their own internal communications and their own personalities.
So, interesting question I'd like for you just to think about or give our listeners some input on. If you were advising one of them in their leadership role, based on your transitions, what would you tell them today that they need to be doing to protect talent like yourself that they bring on board so that talent like yourself might not leave?
Yeah, I think today is a very different environment. Agencies were big pools of talent, and from writers to photographers and everything else was on house. Today, it's becoming much more streamlined and becoming more of it's changing into a gig environment where everybody has their own gig, and working from home is now, I think, close to 50% with a lot of, especially millennials and so forth today. So giving that flexibility to them, like my staff, a lot of them can work from home at times, and they also come in. They enjoy both atmospheres because they like the engagement internally, but they also like the convenience of just staying at home and working. So I think creating that environment, we still pay insurance for our team, which is a little bit unheard of today, which, sometimes I look back and say, But I think creating that environment where talent enjoys being in-house. I work directly with the team all the time. I'm also very engaged with all my clients pretty much continually, too.
So I had an interesting visit with a CEO last week, and we were talking, and he's a statewide company, and he still makes his people come into the office. And his people are literally to work in their area, which is Miami, Jacksonville, or wherever.
Yes.
They'll commute in, and so he sees their presence. If you were advising our folks out there, from your perspective, and he has turnover,
sure.
Do you think with technology today, why would they do that?
I think that, we looked at going completely remote at one point in time, and friends of mine have agencies that are built that way. They don't seem to have any issues with it. The only thing that I've seen that gets pushed back is clients like to see a space.
Right.
So oftentimes they want to come in and see our firm. We're not a big firm, but they just want to come in and see that it's real, even though we've been here 25 plus years as the agency. And so that has some place, but with new facilities like WeWork and Oxford Exchange offering those types of spaces where people can rent a space for that purpose, that can offset the need for an office full time.
So I guess that's the question: is today's workforce is different, whether they're at agency, short of you needing somebody there at the cash register.
Yes.
Like a McDonald's where they can't be virtual. Although, interestingly enough, they're getting more virtual with Uber and stuff and different online stuff.
Truly.
Blake Casper, one of the local McDonald franchises, it's really fun to watch them transition too. And I guess they're faced with all the challenges of getting workers and this digital situation with being online and everything else.
Exactly, yeah.
So do you see that as something that for a growing business they need to, from a leadership position, they need to embrace more or understand more?
Yeah, I think that especially the younger generation, millennials, are looking for, their mindset's very different than you and I. I mean, we're a very hardworking, not that they're not hardworking, but they want to work for a purpose. And they also want life, a true life outside of work. So by allowing them to work outside of the office, perhaps not full-time, but at least part-time, I think you succeed in giving them that desire that they have to have a little bit more of a life outside of work.
Yeah, I got into a debate recently with somebody about millennials' work ethic. I have 5 sons, and they work hard. They work different. They have. I can text them at 10 p.m. at night with all my different millennials around the state, and they'll just text me right back, or you can see their emails be going on and stuff. So when we come back to segment 3 with Terry Zelen, and Terry, thank you for coming in today.
My
this
pleasure.
has been a big treat for us. We're going to talk more about the transition into the digital space and what it can mean for you and your business, but also understanding how people are involved, because I think he hit on something. You're going to have to understand the transition of these millennials also. So again, this is Dean Akers, your host for the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs. Today our guest is Terry Zelen, and we'll see you back in segment 3.
Helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Connect with Dean Akers at deanakers.com. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the third segment of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs each week as they share their journey. This week, Terry Zelen is sharing his journey, and the first couple segments have been pretty interesting. I would call Terry an outlier. And over the break, we were talking a little bit. We got into a discussion with our producer also, talking about something he mentioned, which is a wave of freelancing, but providing benefits to freelancers to keep them more engaged. Do you talk a little bit about how you are able to combine that loyalties that the old schools required, come in and punch the clock, be there, to adopt that loyalty through freelancers that now really enjoy working with you? Yeah, or they're actually full-time, weren't they?
Yeah, we have full-time and we have freelancers, and we actually have a small team in India. So, you have to be competitive today, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. And in the SEO environment, to have stateside writing is difficult because of the cost of writers, talented writers, and it's unfortunate, but it's a true part of the equation. But also, freelancers enjoy their ability to do pick and choose projects, and also you really seem to find the best talent on the they're outside of the firms. They like their flexibility and the ability to do the type of projects they prefer to do most. So building great relationships with them is core to us being able to bring better talent to the table on specific projects.
What are the challenges when you have, call them independent contractor, freelancers and stuff?
I think the biggest challenge is when you have a project coming up is making sure they're available for that particular project and they're not already, taken for a different through a different firm or their own clients.
Have you seen other businesses where if you were sitting in the CEO's chair, you would explore some of that in their business? I mean, where they could use outsiders like that, engage them, and have probably a larger workforce to be able to scale and grow their company without all the brick and mortar.
Not being in other industries, I'm certain that others have adapted to that type of a plan. But I could see it as being something that's very flexible, so you can flex in size quickly, bring in talent on an as needed basis, as opposed to having them on staff full time. We've never actually had a writer on staff full time. We've always outsourced writing because different writers are better for different projects than others. Some may be technical writers, some are more advertising or clever writing, some are more storytellers, and so getting the right writer for the right project was always important to us.
Do you ever see, not naming clients, but do you ever see clients that could engage in kind of these strategies you're talking about more? And again, the reason we share this is your swim lane is ad agency, digital, website development. You've been cutting edge the whole time. But it sounds like part of your journey would mirror other people's journeys in other industries.
Yeah, I would say a company here in Tampa that we have done some work over the years is Sykes downtown.
Right.
They actually, I think, employ a very similar strategy, but on a far larger scale, being that they have English-speaking talent all across the world, the Philippines and other parts of the country and world, but they have adopted a similar resource where they can flex very quickly. If they get a big account, they can bring on a huge number of people to do the services that they provide.
That's a pretty impressive company. We're going to try to have Chuck on. That's impressive. I got to tour their Chinese call center. And I was blown away.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, they're the real deal.
Yeah, they are. And a lot of people still don't know what they do in town today, which shocks me to no end.
Yeah, to know, and not only that, the impact and how I got to meet John Sykes I was involved with UT, and a lot of people don't realize you're probably back in that era somewhat. Had it not been for John Sykes and Ron Vaughn, who's president now, but at the time was in the business school, and they put all this stuff together, and Ron and they put this stuff together to he saved University of Tampa.
Yeah, it changed so dramatically since I've been there, and even when my daughter attended. But Ron has just done incredible stuff with the university. I've known his wife Renee for many, many years. We go way back, but they have just transformed that into the Harvard on the Hillsborough.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And so you've done this medical stuff. I think one of the things we were talking about at the break too, that it must be in your DNA. I'd like to have a blood transfusion. You seem to be using the term future-proofing. You seem to be visionary and like a half a step ahead. How do you keep yourself on the front side of all this stuff that's going on?
I guess I just have an innate interest in, how things are transitioning and changing. And as an agency owner, I think if you're not looking out ahead to see what's coming at you, you're going to get hit from behind and you're not going to know what to do. I see a lot of agency owners that still won't build a website. They outsource it 100%, but you're at the total whim of that developer. If you don't understand how good they are, you don't know how good a product you're delivering. So I find that scary, to say the least. We do offshore some development to our Indian team, but we oversee that very strictly to ensure it's built the way that we want it built, because if a back end is not solid, then you're going to have a lot of problems with it long term.
But again, a lot of our listeners aren't in the ad agency space. It would seem like that some of your thinking and thought processes, again, how do you read a lot? Do you just, when you say you got to be ahead of it, do you just sit around the backyard with a beer and the head of it comes, or what?
No, I prefer wine. But no, I think that I stay on top of trends. So I'm not a person that really enjoys reading much, but I will read and get snippets. So we use something called Feedly to bring in content to us that's of interest to us. But we also pull in...
What was the name of that?
Feedly, Feedley, I believe it is, or it may just be LY. It pulls content. It's kind of an RSS feed, so pulls in content that we're interested in.
Would that be something that if you were an entrepreneur and you were in the space of medical technology, or you were you were a veterinarian or something, would that be something that would be of value to the listeners to look up Feedly or whatever.com and see about was it kind of like a repository that sends your stuff that you want to know about to you? Yeah,
you can go inside of the tool and actually dictate what type of content you're interested in. And it will push that content to you, be it a blog or a website and so forth, into that Feedly content container. And you can access that information directly there. So rather than you going out and scouring the internet, you find specific content you're in search of, and it brings it to you. So it's a really great tool for doing that type of content mining.
And could you set it up so it force feeds it, or do you have to always go on Feedly and search?
I'm not the person who set it up. Someone from my team did, but I believe it has AI, so artificial intelligence. It sees what you like and continues to search for more similar content to bring into you. And there are different tools that watch what you read, and they will feed you more of that similar content. But I try and stay there's a trend towards, when we were talking the other night, personal branding is becoming highly important for individuals to stand out. I'm very interested in that because as an agency owner, I've found that not a lot of other agency owners are in that realm right now. So we've pushed out in that. We've made a very conscious decision to become, as you would call it, known. So I'm pushing out right now with a great deal of content on a number of platforms, and with high frequency to drive towards that. I don't know that it's a new frontier, but it's a newer realm that most, and it's not mandated that it's only agency by any stretch. Anybody in any industry could really go and drive themselves out into that area to become more known online.
So is that something that our listeners could look up online under a blog from you or something? Or
we developed a blog. I got with a consultant and that just specializes in ad agencies. And his theory is fish away from the boat. So we developed a blog, which is really a content resource platform. Initially, we developed 30 blogs, all of them 1,000 words long, which is an endeavor in itself. And it's all completely focused on marketing for home builders and developers.
Is that the punch list?
That's correct. Thepunchlist.com, the-punch-list.com is the site. And it's just a repository. We don't talk about our ad agency there. It's free content that we've developed strictly for the home building industry.
Well, that we've had other folks on, and that reminds us of the Trojan horse, where you become an expert or a go-to, and then they call you up and they say, "Can you tell us what you do?" And you go, "No, I'm just helping you through that." And then next thing you know, they're your client.
Curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's got to be very cool. So writing blogs. Do you know what your hits are there?
It's pretty low right now. From everything I've read, and I've been reading a fair amount of content on it. It's usually about a year, but the first step is the hardest. So we made the commitment and we pushed it out there. But there's also a lot of strategy that goes into the deployment of the content, frequency, and locations.
Right.
So we're breaking a lot of the norms in the way we're doing it, based on the consultant that we brought on board.
Great. Well, this is Dean Akers, again, your host for the CEO Hour, bringing you top CEOs. We have Terry Zelen on today, sharing his journey on growing a large digital agency here in the Tampa Bay area. And again, if you want that CEO physical, it's help@adjunctceo.com, help@adjunctceo.com. The folks that have downloaded it so far have just found it very, very, very helpful in finding the blind spots in their business. So we'd love to help you there. And we'll look forward to seeing you in segment 4.
Success never takes the weekend off. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com. Welcome back to the CEO Hour, helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to the fourth and final segment of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs each week that share their journey. And on that journey, we learn good things, bad things that they would or should not do or would love to do again. But more importantly, they share some of the things that if you do take away from it, you can deploy in your business and understand leadership skills and sometimes just strategies. Our guest today, Terry Zelen, is in this fourth segment. We want to talk about something that I know's big time now, and he is a guru on it. That's how I really met him, and that's the digital space. And that's a big word in of itself. But, Terry, give me some overviews of some of the landmines in the digital space today.
Well, I think that the most difficult thing that most clients come to us with is not understanding which avenue to go down in the digital space, whether it's pay-per-click, SEO, retargeting, social media, because different platforms have different audiences, and even social media itself has its own set of audiences, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So you find different audiences in different places. And as an agency, our challenge is to find where the target audience of our clients are found. So if we can send out a message all day on one platform and nobody hears it, so it's incumbent upon our team to find out where their audience is, identify them properly, and then find out how to reach them best through those channels.
One of the things I learned years ago is I use a demographer, still do, that takes all my data and gives me everything. I mean, I can tell you what color clothes they wear on Monday mornings. And once I have that, that's always, do you help your customers deep dive their customer data?
Yes. I mean, it's really important to us to see as much of the data as we can so that we can help identify, who the client is, who their clients are, what's their age group, do they have children, do they have, what are their preferences in terms of, activities and so forth, to be able to target them on different platforms. And also, if we don't know who the customer is, how can we possibly market to them?
And so our entrepreneurs out there, forget agencies. Let's say that's your job, and
Sure.
you can ask for that, and maybe you got data. Right. They should know who their customer is.
Yeah, simple forms that they can have their clients fill out will help them identify not only who they are, but where they found their business, whether it was a website, whether it was a print ad, a sign. And it's not always true to form, because somebody will walk in to buy a home and they say, "Where did you find us?" And they say, "A sign," because that's the last thing that they saw before they walked in the door, when in reality, it may have been the website. Today, the consumer, at least 85% of the consumers do research online before they ever stop into a brick and mortar or, go to purchase a product. So chances are they have a really good sense of who you are as a company. So it's really important that your website, because that's the center of your universe today from a marketing standpoint, that the website doesn't have broken links, that it's a great representation of your company, and that I think one of the biggest challenges for most clients is being cohesive and coherent across all platforms. If you have a web developer doing your website, you got an agency doing your marketing materials, they don't always talk, and so you can have a bipolar brand where it looks one way on one platform and completely different in another. That can be a real challenge.
So, from a personal experience, one of my companies that we grew really large and sold for a lot of money, when we did the demographic deep dive by taking this demographer guy that took all our patient information, everybody in the arounds thought the average household income was $75,000 or better, and it was $37,000.
I remember this one.
Yeah, it changed everything, and we did really well. But at the end of the day, I meet CEOs right now that they don't know anything about anything that's going on with their digital stuff.
Right.
How important is it for them to learn too, so they can ask the right questions of you / their marketing directors or whomever's?
Sure. I mean, depending on the size of the company, everybody has to answer to somebody else, whether it's a stockholder or whoever, investors in the company. So I think that, the more you know as a CEO, the better off you are, and you can understand if your team below you is actually engaging in the right direction. So I think it's really important that they at least have a basic understanding of what's going on, whether they don't need to deep dive down into the technical aspects of each platform, but they should at least have an overall or a general understanding of what each of those platforms can offer to them.
We had an instance that you and I talked a little bit about, but we, at my SEO guys, thought they had great SEO, and I'm pretty involved in this, and we had one of the largest websites. We were in the top 500 in the U.S. at the time on Alexa or whatever that thing is, or where do you find website rate? It doesn't matter.
Oh, there's a lot of different tools out there. But
we were really high up, and they were bragging on SEO. And then when we did keywords that people were coming on, it was always hybrids of our name. like 90%, which we were spending a fortune on traditional media, radio particularly.
Correct.
But we were able to see people would hear that and go to our website, but they would type a hybrid.
Certainly.
It wasn't they were never searching for what we did.
Right.
So I don't know. There's a lot to learn for a CEO, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's more and more challenging. I mean, when you look at it today, I mean, the internet has changed everything and computers have changed everything. This is somewhat comparable to a CEO, but when I was first started out in the ad agency, I laid out the ad and I put it up on a board, and then someone would take it from there and it would go to film and it would go on and on and on, and somebody would retouch the photos, somebody would set the type. Well, today's art director has to do all of those processes that were outsourced to different people within the chain of command in an agency. Now that's all been, condensed down to several individuals instead of an entire team.
Is there advice you would give our entrepreneurs and our CEOs out there, or our listeners that are in leadership, that would help them learn to communicate with the yous of the world? And the reason I ask this question is, a lot of times, especially when you're a vendor and you're in advertising, somebody's spending $500,000 with you or something crazy, and you got some kind of crazy CEO and he's telling you what to do, and you know that it's not probably the best strategy, but you're kind of following his lead and trying to navigate. What would you tell a leader they need to do to really learn to engage with people like yourself to get the most bang out of the buck?
Right. There's two things there, actually. The first of which is, if you've hired me and you trust me enough with your money, then you should listen to me. So if you're telling me that you want to go this route and I'm suggesting you don't, first of all, I would be remiss if I'm not warning you that you're going the wrong path. And I can only tell you that so many times before you're steadfast and you're going to go down that path. But it's up to me to at least let them know they're going the wrong direction, in my opinion. And then secondly, I think it's really important to them to be able to step out of their shoes and into the consumer shoes, because what he or she may think is the right direction or the right audience may be totally, completely off. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I continually run into is owners of companies, CEOs, and so forth, that just strictly refuse to put themselves in the shoes of the actual customer.
So how would you recommend somebody does that?
Listen to your agency.
Yeah.
And also actually interview your buyers. Like when we do a deep dive into a company, we talk to the stakeholders, which include both, let's say it's a board. There's also the people who are actually implementing what the strategy is from inside of the company, so the employees, and then the customers. So by interviewing all three audiences, we get a much clearer sense of what is actually being presented to the customer, or should be presented to the customer, and what also should be conveyed from a top-down standpoint to the internal team of a specific company, so they understand what the marching orders are and what the brand really stands for, and that they're conveying that out to the audience in the proper manner.
So one of the things I run into is accountability, both from the agency and the CEO. In other words, do you believe in measurement so that you could say, hey, we spent $1 million and we got X. If we spend $2 million, we could get Y? Or do you believe in that?
We have clients today that won't do anything unless it's measurable, period.
Right.
So
but isn't that smart?
Oh, by all means. Yeah, and there weren't opportunities to track so much like a billboard back in the day, or a print ad. You could put a unique phone number on it. You could put a different type of mechanism to trail back a unique URL and so forth. But now there's tools that make it really easy to track phone numbers, more so than before. And then there's also, almost nearly all online strategies are measurable, very highly measurable.
Well, Terry, I really appreciate you joining us today. And Terry Zelen is CEO of the Zelen Communications,
yes.
A top communications firm here in the Tampa Bay area. You ought to reach out to him to get more in-depth information. Terry, what's your phone number?
My number at the office is 813-250-1530.
Yeah, give Terry a call. I mean, he and I met by happenstance, and I was mega impressed, and I love the digital space. And Terry really opened my eyes when we visited, and hopefully today you're taking away some ideas from him, both from leadership standpoint and the digital standpoint. Again, I'm Dean Akers, your host for the CEO Hour, and each week we bring you top CEOs. This week, Terry Zelen. Thank you, Terry.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Again, I want to remind everybody we're on every week, and we'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. Join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.